you can't really feel creatively free when you've got your guards up, when you're like, I need to make sure that I'm okay in this space. One producer, for example, I hadn't worked with him before, but he's like, I make my best stuff at 11 p.m. So you're welcome to come to my studio at that time. And I was like, I don't know you and I don't feel comfortable doing that.
That's Xylo Aria, and she's the founder of Music Production for Women. MPW is a global learning community empowering female and non-binary artists to produce music with confidence in a safe, encouraging space. She believes creative freedom starts with security, which gives artists confidence to shape their own music.
Going in as an artist and you have a bit of a vision for it, but then the producer, especially when you're second guessing your skills and you're kind of not wanting to step on the producer's toes, then they can end up walking all over you. And then I've spent a lot of money on songs that I've not even released because they were not what I wanted.
In this episode, you'll learn why paying for a session doesn't guarantee the result you want, how an unsafe or unbalanced studio dynamic can affect your music, and why self-producing can give artists more confidence, clarity, and creative control. Stick around. I'm Bobby Owsinski, and this is my Inner Circle podcast. So tell me about the music production for women, the site, the courses that you do, just an overview of what that is.
Yeah, sure, Bobby. First, thanks for having me. It's great to chat to you. And MPW, I started it close to 8 years ago now. And I started it based on my own experience. So I started as a singer-songwriter and I was always relying on others to produce my music. And unfortunately had some kind of not so good experiences after that and decided I'm just going to do this myself and I have to learn this skill to do it myself. And that learning journey was quite lonely and I felt like the odd person out whenever I was going into these rooms and getting to the point where I was producing myself. I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I knew that I could do this before and I wish I got to it earlier. And reflecting on that just kind of started the kind of teaching environment and school that I wish existed when I got started in music production. So we work mostly with women and gender minorities as well, mainly to the thing that I want them to get most out of it is that mindset shift to show them that they can do it and there's no reason that they can't. And we run mostly one course throughout the year, which is a 1-year program, which is our Master Your Music program. And then we do loads of free events throughout the year as well. A lot of them are online, and then we have a few in person as well. So, and then we have our podcast and YouTube channel and a few other resources around that as well.
What are the common obstacles that women face, generally speaking, when they're a minority in this business? How does that work?
Yeah, I think that's the main thing, is like because it's been that way for so long that when we close our eyes and think of a music producer sitting behind the desk, like there's an image of what that person looks like. And it often doesn't look like a young woman, perhaps, in that space. And when we can't see that image or, that saying of you can't be what you can't see. I think that's what it is. But yeah, you feel like it's a space that's not for you and not something that you can even do yourself. So that I think we end up putting a lot of barriers on ourselves, telling ourselves that, maybe this isn't for me or maybe it's not something I can do. Maybe there's a reason why, there aren't other women in this space. So there's that. And then I guess it is a space that's been kind of heavily male dominated. Then, as in the music industry, it is so much about networks. And when a project comes up and someone needs a producer or, sound engineer or something, they just pick the first person that comes to their mind, which is, might be their male friend or something like that. So it's kind of getting into those circles as well where we are thought of as well, which takes time.
Is there one thing that the people that you encounter, is there one thing that they misunderstand or they don't know?
Not really. Like if we're talking technical stuff, no. I guess there's a confidence thing that I see a lot amongst people that are starting in this space. I don't know if it's the same for men as well. Perhaps it is, but there's a confidence issue where people are very much unsure if they even can do it or have the skills to do it. So yeah, that's probably, if I were to put it down to one thing, something I see a lot.
Is there a technical issue maybe that they're afraid it's too technical for them?
Yeah, there is this thought process that, I'm not a techie person, so I won't be able to, do it. Yeah, so that is a thread that we see a lot as well.
I think it goes just the opposite for males in that they're too techie.
Yeah, maybe.
It's true, and they get so into the tech they kind of forget about the music. So that's a very, very common thread that we all see.
I would say that our students are more focused on the outcome in the music and kind of hope that they can get the tech at the start.
Do the people that you teach, do they tend to go into one genre of music, or is it across the board?
No, it's various genres. So yeah, we have, electronic, singer-songwriter, folk. We have people making like meditation, sound healing sort of music. So yeah, variety.
Is that a challenge for you as an instructor?
Not really. Like, we are mostly teaching them how to use the software, and use it in a way that they are building the muscle memory to find what they need and understand the tools of how it works. And then how they put that into practice is kind of up to them. So we don't go too specifically into genre focused things, and we keep it a little bit more general. But I think the tools that we're working with is the same, really.
Have you ever noticed that mixing vocals is often the hardest part of getting a track to sound right? You boost, you compress, you add effects, and it still doesn't feel professional. So, to make it easier, I put together a simple mini course on vocal mixing that walks you through the exact steps to get the vocals sounding clear and upfront. If you're interested, scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the show notes. Now, back to today's conversation. I know in my courses it's kind of the same thing where it's like, well, these are fundamentals that really apply to any genre.
Yeah.
So don't get too hung up on the examples, for instance, although I try to give them examples from a lot of different areas, but you can't get them all. That's the problem. Yeah. So what has been, you started as an artist and obviously you had some frustrations. What has been your experience with male producers?
I hope it's not kind of across the board, but we have heard these a lot. So at the start, I was like, is it just me or what's going on? But there's a little like a bit of a power struggle, like going in as an artist and you have a bit of a vision for it, but then the producer, especially when you're second guessing your skills and you're kind of not wanting to step on the producer's toes, then they can end up walking all over you. And then, I've spent a lot of money on songs that I've not even released because they were not what I wanted, but I felt like I didn't have the space to be able to communicate that, or felt like what I was suggesting was wrong, or so there's that power struggle. And then yeah, I mean, things just kind of not being fully comfortable in that space, like being hit on in a session. Unfortunately, like that's something that just happens, and I've heard a lot as well across the board. And you can't really feel creatively free when you've got your guards up, when you're like, I need to make sure that I'm okay in this space. And, sometimes people, one producer, for example, I hadn't worked with him before, but he's like, I make my best stuff at 11 p.m. So welcome, you're welcome to come to my studio at that time. And I was like, I don't know you and I don't feel comfortable doing that. So those kind of things, you're just trying to just look after yourself without allowing yourself to be free, express what you need to, and do that in a completely safe environment.
I must admit, that's something that I never had considered. So what's your background like? How did you get into this?
Yeah, I've been kind of writing songs since I was about 12 or so. And then in high school, started, yeah, kind of creating them with other producers and then releasing music, etc. I ended up studying accounting because, yeah, from my family background, they were kind of saying, you need something a bit, secure and stuff. And then I worked, I got a job as a corporate accountant, did that for about 4 years. All the while I'd be, gigging on the weekends and weeknights, etc. And then eventually got to a point where I was like, I feel like I'm losing my personality completely in this job. And it just felt a little bit lost and wasn't inspired by what I was doing day to day. And then I ended up quitting that job, moved to the UK, because a lot of the music that I loved seemed to be coming from there. And then there I was kind of doing some casual type accounting work or contract work. And in the same time, this kind of idea for MPW and the platform was stewing in the back of my mind. And I was like, should I start it? Should I not? And then one of my really close friends passed away really suddenly. And I mean, there's not a bigger wake up call than that. I think that you have no idea how much time you have. So if there's something you want to do, now's the best time to do it. So I ended up quitting the contract that I had, and about 2 weeks later started building MPW. And it's 7 years on, and variety of things have happened since then. But that was kind of the journey.
And then you moved back to Australia.
I did, just before COVID, March 2020. March 2020. Back.
And that was because?
Well, my visa ended. I was shattered. I
That's
really,
a good way to,
really wanted
good
to
reason.
stay.
Yeah.
But also, it was for the best, because if I was on some kind of temporary visa and stuck, in another country during COVID, I think that was probably wouldn't have been great. So moved back home, and I'm actually very glad to be back. It's a pretty good place to be, Melbourne.
Yeah, well, someday I will visit there. What's one thing about you that you wish people knew and they don't?
I guess, I don't know if I was to pick off the top of my head, but I love kind of meditation, mindfulness, and that's something that I want to grow in that perspective, being more mindful, being more present, and kind, patient as much as possible. And I think growing in your business and your other skills and stuff is great, but the more we can do that, I think the world will be a better place if we can all just focus on improving ourselves, from that kind of emotional and mindful place.
You have a very calm presence about you, so that's
I'm glad.
pretty obvious that you lean in that direction.
Thanks, Bobby.
Okay, so let me come back with you then. What's one thing about MPW that you wish people knew that maybe they don't understand?
I would say that we want to help whoever it is just take that first step. That's the most challenging thing. Sometimes people are like, oh, Xylo, I'll start with you once I'm a bit further down in the journey, and then maybe they get lost along that journey and then they never kind of take that first step. So I would say if you're thinking about it and you haven't taken that step yourself, then I'd love to support you do that. You don't have to be further down in the process at all.
Where are they generally in their journey, just in terms of experience?
It varies. So there are some people who've never produced before, who've never kind of opened a DAW, and there's some people that have been kind of making some sort of demos that maybe they're not super happy with, and they feel like there's a bunch of gaps in their knowledge and they just want to bring it all together. So mostly people who would like to perhaps go down the artist route of creating and releasing.
I know from my students as well, it's the same thing where they're songwriters and they just want to be able to do it themselves. And because either they can't afford to hire somebody or they don't know who it is that they can hire, they can trust. So you can always trust yourself.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Last question then. What's a piece of advice that maybe somebody imparted to you, or maybe something that you learned along the way? Is there one best piece of advice?
I guess there's lots. There's lots, but one that just comes to my mind now from one of my mentors is something that I still don't completely do myself, but is 70% done is great. Like just don't aim for that 100% perfection in what you're doing. And I think that was more from a running your business perspective, which I think is good, but I think it's great to apply that more broadly as well, even in our music creation, because so many of us, and I know I can get in our heads about having something done, and then you're tweaking and tweaking for so long. So get to a point where it's sounding good, and then let go, move on to the next thing, and your productivity will increase so much.
So that was happening in my writing, and I thought, oh, does this extend to everything else? And it sort of does. You get to a point, you're making it different, not necessarily better.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening and being in my inner circle. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, you can send them to questions@bobbyowsinski.com. You can also learn all about the latest in music, audio, and production news, and find out about openings for my latest online classes at bobbyowsinski.com. This is Bobby Owsinski. I will see you next time